Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Coach Marty Gaal, USA Triathlon Coach and a certified strength and conditioning specialist. Today I would like to talk about when workouts go wrong. So there's a lot of reasons why your training session may go poorly, ranging from you trained too hard the day before, you trained too much the entire week, you slept poorly, the gods don't like you, your aura is bad, all sorts of reasons. But the important thing is, how do you deal with it when your session goes poorly? So the most important one to be careful of as far as triathlon goes is going to be running, because running with the impact and the stress is the highest chance for injury. So let's talk about some running workouts where you have a choice. You have a road that you're going to choose. You're going to push through or you're not going to push through. And the two ones that I'm most concerned with are interval training sessions and your long run. So let's say you get to your interval session, 2 or 3 miles of intervals after your warm up. On the warm up, you're feeling a little off. You get to the first interval, and whatever's happening, your muscles aren't responding. You feel a twinge somewhere, whatever it may be. You have a choice, and you have a choice right then. You can choose to push through or you can back off. And let's talk about the pros and cons of that. There is something to be said for your dedication to not letting pain and discomfort stop you from achieving your goals. However, if you push through something that is going to create a problem, it is going to derail your entire season. And running is the most dangerous sport to do that, right? So, that being said, 95% of the time, my advice, and probably the advice of most coaches out there, is going to be to back off, either stop the session or just continue easy, get a few easy miles, and then you're going to come back to that session at a later date. The reason being, a little bit of a strain on the run can quickly turn into a muscle tear. It can turn into a legitimate sprain, a ligament or tendon issue. And in the run, those are going to stop you completely from running for at least a couple weeks, if not months. So we got to be super careful with that. The same can be said for the long run. Let's say, you're doing a marathon training program and you're 7 weeks out and this is your 17 or 18 mile run. And the week was tough. Maybe you didn't sleep good a couple nights. Maybe you went a little too hard on your interval session earlier in the week, and you show up on Saturday or Sunday morning and you get through those first 2 or 3 miles. And the goal of this particular session is to hit, marathon pace for 10 or 12 miles. And you're 15 or 20 seconds off, and it's just not happening, right? And you feel bad. Your heart rate's up, your muscles are responding poorly, your form is a little off. And again, you have a choice. You can choose to keep pushing or you can choose to back off. Again, my advice, I'm sorry, that's my phone. Ah, fingers. I don't want to do this all over again, so I'm going to leave that in there. You can choose to back off or you can push through. The problem with pushing through at a stage like this is that when you're not feeling good and you've got so many more miles in front of you, your chances of an issue really happening increase like every mile you go along, especially if you're pushing your body to hit a pace that you are just not able to hold on that day. Again, chances for sprains, muscle strains, all sorts of problems. But here's the option with a day like that. You can get the miles in provided you're not having any like significant like sharp pain. You can just ease off, get your long run, and then move on and attempt this at another date, right? Like the next week. Instead of that week being a recovery run, maybe you make that your pace run. So you have options. I got to emphasize it again. Running is the most dangerous one to push through. And like you've probably heard, it's better to be 1% undertrained than 101% and be overtrained or injured, right? So it's always better to be healthy and slightly undertrained at your goal race than it is to push through and think I'm gonna make the jump here, and then you can't do the event at all. Now, biking and swimming are going to be less problematic. However, with biking, you got some issues. You can certainly wreck a hip or a knee in the short term by pushing and grinding too hard on an interval day, for example, when your muscles again are not responding, which means your muscles are not supporting your soft tissue as well as they should, meaning more stress transfers to your soft tissue. So we want to avoid transferring too much stress to knee, hip, joints, right? The long rides, here's a situation you're going to run into if you're training for half Ironman or Ironman. If you're doing a fall event, you're going to have some long rides that take place in the heat. There's no way to avoid it. And some days, especially if it was a hot week and you're already training a lot during that week, you may go into this session slightly dehydrated, and it's just going to continue to get worse throughout the day. And so on a session where you're supposed to hold, again, half Ironman or Ironman pace intervals, and you may hit the second or third round and be like, I just can't do it. You can attempt to push through, but the hole you're digging for yourself on a day like that may be more than it's worth. It'd be better to just go easy, steady, finish out the session, and come back to fight another day. So biking, less chance of getting hurt, but higher chance of just building a fatigue depth that you cannot recover from in a timely fashion. Now, swimming is really specific. Swimming is all going to be mostly shoulder and a little bit of back, lower back from the twisting, for any of you who have back issues. So with the shoulders, there's a couple things you can work on. Number one is do the best you can to swim with good form. If you're swimming and you've got this straight arm style of out of the water recovery, that puts more strain on your shoulder. So that's one thing you can work on. But let's say it's just the training load and you get to your third session of the week and again, things aren't responding well, you're not loosening up, and that day calls for threshold or intervals or sprints or something like that. Don't do it. Right? Very, very easy to tear or strain a rotator cuff, and then you're going to be sidelined from swimming or hobbled in swimming for several weeks. So better to just do easy endurance swimming, write that session off, and come back to it at another point. All of us are going to experience bad days. This is part of athletic training where your body doesn't respond like it should or the way you want it to. And frankly, all of us are going to experience bad races where despite you doing everything perfectly, you show up and for some reason it's just not going to work that day. It will happen. How you deal with that on a race day is different than how you deal with it on a training day. Because on a training day, you can redo it. On a race day, you're going to do the best you can and hope you don't get hurt, honestly. I advise you not to get hurt because anytime you injure yourself, you cannot, train and come back to another event sooner. Now, last part is strength training. So all of us should be doing some level of strength training. We do not want to injure ourselves strength training. So that's going to happen by lifting too heavy when we're fatigued, right? Because again, we're putting the strain on the joints versus the muscles. So we have to be very careful with that. Or by lifting too much weight too soon, right? So be very careful with your progression of weight-bearing exercises, as well as going into a strength training session after experiencing fatigue from running or biking intervals or from swimming. Because if we're swimming in the morning and then we come back and do strength training in the afternoon, your upper body is going to be fairly fatigued. So you need to be very, very aware of how much and how many reps you're doing. So summary of this, apologies for the phone call. The summary of this is on days where sessions are not going your way, almost all of the time you are better off backing off or stopping that session and coming back to it at another point. You can turn a pace run into an easy run. You can turn an interval run into an easy run, provided you don't have sharp pain. And you can turn your biking and swimming sessions into easy, steady days. Always going to be safer. That way you can continue on with your training progression and not have to sit on the sidelines. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.